Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Terror, Horror, Agony by Judith Sonnet. This is a short story collection with a beautiful, beautiful cover from Betty Rocksteady. I absolutely love this this picture, this artwork. That'd be freaky if that was a photo. Just fantastic, fantastic cover. This is the second book in my latest book bundle, which is I'm reading 5 books in a row. They're all short story collections. Collections by single authors, with an exception being 2 authors that always write together, or used to always write together. But anyway, this is the second book in that book bundle. This is the main reason I'm doing that book bundle right now, because I just got this book, wanted to read it as soon as possible, get it reviewed. And for the too long didn't watch folks, I give this 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really like this book. Now I'll tell you, I was a little nervous when I started this book. Well, first of all, there's a foreword by Rath James White, which is fantastic. Not the same as an introduction. Someday I'll have to figure out, or at least Google, the difference between a foreword for a book and an introduction for a book. No spoilers or anything in this introduction from Rath James White. He just goes on about how wonderful Judith Sonnet is, and I couldn't agree more. But as I was saying, I was a little nervous when I started this book. The first story is called Graveyard Dirt. And it's a very simple story, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's about a young girl, 15 years old, who falls asleep on a grave. She's on her way home from school, takes a little break to do a little reading. It's a beautiful sunny day, sort of just lulls her into a little nap on this grave. And of course, that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil anything. But very much a very simple story. Feels like maybe something that could have been in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And I enjoyed it. Judith Sonnet, always amazing character work. That's probably her strongest attribute as a writer. And I found it interesting that this character is just a simple, average, normal teenage girl. She's thinking about her 16th birthday party and the people that she's going to invite. And it doesn't seem that she's an outsider or anything like that. And Judith, I think, at least in the limited amounts that I've read from her, tends to like writing about outsiders. So pleasant surprise that this was just a nice, normal teenage girl. But as I said, it felt a little simple, and since this is my first time really reading Judith Sonnet's short stories, I was a little nervous that the entire book would be this way. But I mean, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, so I think it's obvious that's not the case. The second story, Eerie and Beautiful. See, now we're back to these outcast characters. Our main character is a homeless woman. And again, wonderful character work from Judith Sonnet. But this character is walking the streets. We're inside her head. And, but she meets this incredibly beautiful woman who she's seen before on the streets of New York, and this woman escorts our protagonist to a museum of statues, and it's not open to the public yet. But this beautiful woman takes our protagonist in to show her around, and things happen. Not one of my favorites. It's a fine story. I had a vague idea where it was going, but again, it's the character work that stands out. Then we have Opposition, and I really, really liked this story, and it's essentially you have two widowed radio show hosts. One, in the simplest terms, one who is very, very liberal, one who is very, very conservative. I don't know. I can't think of any like super liberal podcast hosts to compare the one to, but the other guy would be like your Alex Jones or your Rush Limbaugh, like super, super conservative radio show host. And their opposing radio stations or radio shows are owned by the same company, so they happen to meet at a party that was hosted by this company, and they actually become friends. Now, they hide their friendship because they're, opposing viewpoints, and they, because they're widowed, they have they get together every Christmas at this cabin to just sort of hang out. Neither one has any place else to go or anybody else really to spend their Christmas with. And again, I'm going to say this basically for every story. Fantastic character work. I like where it goes, and it makes one question, and this is something that I've questioned, these radio show hosts, podcast hosts, TV hosts that seem to have extreme views. How much of that is what they really believe, and how much of that is what they're paid to say? I've thought that for a number of extreme right hosts that I'm aware of, that I've heard. Do they actually believe these terrible, terrible things they're saying? Or is it just a job? But if you think about it, if it's just a job, it's pretty terrible for them to be saying these horrible, horrible things just for a paycheck. And I think there's a difference between, I'm way out in left field at this point. There's a difference between an actor playing a reprehensible character in a movie because you're watching a piece of fiction and they're an actor and they've been paid to do it, as opposed to these, let's say, Fox News hosts who appear to be simply spouting their own personal opinions, their own personal thoughts. They wouldn't be popular if people knew that they were simply saying these things because they were getting paid for it. They're basically, if people thought that they were basically just being an actor, but again, I wonder, are they? But it's a reprehensible thing to do, to simply take a paycheck to demand that, LGBTQ plus people be wiped off the mat, essentially, or whatever it is they happen to be spouting. Anyway, all of that. Opposition, fantastic story. The Christ. Holy cow. This is about two scientists who are dating, and they get into a discussion about religion. The female scientist has a child. She is not introduced to the person she's dating because she wants to get to know him better. She told him right up front, none of this dating stuff at work. We have to be completely professional. I have a child. I'm not going to tell you their name or anything else until I really know, that this is something that you're somebody I can trust. Well, it gets to that point, and things happen. I figured it could go one of two ways. And it went one of those ways, but even it went further than even I expected. And just, again, fantastic character work, interesting discussions between the characters, and love the ending. Then we have Cold Pocket. We have I think she's a 10-year-old girl and her brother. They're staying at a cabin. Actually, I think they live there. They live at this cabin that's on a lake that's mostly summer vacationers come to this place, but they're there. They are there year round. Their father is a horror writer, so in the winter he's always writing, and in the summer he's going on book tours and things. Or if some of his books have been made into movies, so he and his wife are going to red carpet events and things. But so this young girl and her brother, I think he's a twin brother, are sitting on the dock at the lake, and he says, "Hey, do you think I can swim all the way across the lake?" And this is spring, before the summer people are there, but warm enough that they could swim in the lake. Hey, do you think I can swim across the lake? At first, she's reticent about it, and then she's like, you know what? Basically, on board, let's do it. Excuse me, but there's the brother starts talking about some ghost stories about the lake that his father has told him. So things get a little spooky as they're swimming. And this is one of my favorite stories in the book. It's again, just I'm very repetitious here. Fantastic character work. The dialogue, the banter back and forth, the picking on each other between these two siblings, I think is fantastic. And this has some of the creepiest images, in my opinion, in the book, with just a few words, just a sentence or so, and you can picture what Judith is conveying, and it's just, if you're immersed in the story, it's just a creepy image. Cold Pocket. After that is The Healing Room, another favorite. We have a trans woman who is on the run from an abusive ex-boyfriend, and she stops at a motel called Paradise. She ends up in the wrong room. She's told she's given the key for room 6. The key doesn't work, and she realizes that the paint on the key fob is sort of worn off, and it's actually the key for room 8. So she decides, there's nobody else staying at this hotel, I might as well just stay in room 8. So she goes into room 8, and it's a beautiful room. She's incredibly surprised, especially considering the cost. But someone else shows up. This old lady shows up, saying that she was given room 8. And our protagonist is like, well, okay, I'll go back to the lobby. I'll get the key for room 6. Go to the room that I was supposed to have. And the old lady's like, no, stay here. And then things happen. I can't tell you the things that happen. I don't want to spoil anything. But this is I will say this is a very supernatural story. And some really spooky stuff happens in this one. And again, great characters. And there's an illustration for this one. Let's look. The Healing Room illustration by Adam Concepcion. Would that be the proper pronunciation? So another really good one. I really liked this one a lot. Next up we have It Wasn't a Squonk. And this is the most graphic story in here. This is, if you look at the cover page, a collection of mostly quiet horror stories. This is the one that is not a quiet horror story. This is straight up bordering on extreme horror. And it's some kids at a summer camp. And one of these kids one night is telling his buddies in the middle of the night that he saw this thing called a squonk. He has a book of mythological creatures, shows them what this squonk is. He says, we need to go out and try and find it. And they convince him to at least wait until the morning, the next day. So they go back to bed the next day. They go out hunting for the squonk. Things happen. Great interaction between the kids. They're all very distinct. Excuse me. And I did not know that this was going to be... So is it a spoiler, me telling you this is the extreme story? Or the not quiet horror story? I didn't know that it wasn't going to be, so I was shocked when the things happened that indicated this is not a quiet horror story. And again, really, really enjoy the ending. The Garden, the Bridge is, you've got this young couple. They're not homeless, but they're drug addicts, and they're just out. They're drinking, drugs, sex, rock and roll, all that stuff. And but again, very well written characters. I like these characters. And the gentleman, the man of the pair, says, "Hey, let me take you to this place called the Garden that I used to go to when I was a kid. And it's really cool. You'll love it." And so they're driving out, and he stops, and there's a bridge. They're going to cross that bridge by foot. There's a legend around the bridge. Things happen. Possibly the spookiest story in here. If not the spookiest, then very close or tied for the spookiest. The imagery in here, fantastic. Again, I love the characters and where this story goes. And there are a number of stories in this collection have that. Here's some sort of folklore that's going to, lead us to the things that are going to happen in this story. So that's The Garden, the Bridge. Then we have Infinite Yarn, which again, very creepy. This trans woman, very sad as well. This trans woman has moved to a new city, gotten an apartment, made a friend. This woman in the apartment building lives below her, and that neighbor from downstairs had come up to welcome her to the building, gives her a scarf that she knitted, and our protagonist is like, "Oh, I would like to learn how to knit," and so some knitting lessons ensue. It's very, very sad because this is the protagonist has a job basically mopping floors at a hospital, I believe it is, and has to be male for this job. Has to use their dead name for this job. Has to essentially, in public for the most part, definitely at the job, has to hide who they are. Which is very, very sad. And it's heartbreaking, actually. But the story itself, aside from that, the relationship between our protagonist and the neighbor is very interesting, and then gets weird, and then gets really, really cool, which I found really, really awesome. Another great ending for a story. And then we have The Last Alcoholic on Earth, which I don't know that I'm giving anything away by saying basically we have a young girl who is kidnapped by her father. It's in the first couple of pages. He arrived at her school and said, "Hey, your mom decided we're going to get back together and we're going to have a big fancy dinner. Come with me. And then he takes her to this remote cabin and keeps her there. But he's an alcoholic. He barely feeds her. The cabin is freezing. And things are going to happen. And again, very kind of folklorish, very interesting, well-written characters, like the ending. Oh, I do want to go back to Infinite Yarn. It has a framing device. The protagonist is at the beginning of the story, is a grandmother, and her granddaughter has brought her back to this building where the main crux of the story has taken place. And so we have them coming to this building, then we get the story, which is, her memories, and then we end with her and her granddaughter again at the building. And it was very touching, and it made me a little misty-eyed. Who knew that Judith Sonnet, who I think everything else I've read from her has been incredibly extreme or splatterpunk, who knew she could bring a tear to the eye with some of these quiet horror stories. And then there are notes. I love author notes, even though they're out of order. They're not. I don't know what happened, if maybe the order of the stories was changed at the last minute or something, but the notes aren't in exactly the same order as the stories. But I would finish a story and then go to the back and read the notes about that story. Because I'm old, my memory is not great, and I was afraid if I waited, then I'd be like, all right, I don't remember what that story was now that I'm reading the notes on it. But love the author notes. And some of them get a little personal. So that's it. I've covered all the stories for Terror, Horror, Agony by Judith Sonnet, with a beautiful, beautiful cover from Betty Rocksteady. And it's a fantastic short story collection. And despite my nervousness after reading the first story, which again is fine, but I was afraid that all of the stories were going to be sort of that simple. Nothing of the sort. We've got a range of types of stories and just fantastic characters, which not a lot of authors can necessarily do in a short story. When they've got, hundreds of pages, they can develop their characters, but some authors are a little weak at character development in a short. Judith, not one of those people. So 4 out of 5 stars. Highly recommended. I'm more than happy to read whatever Judith Sonnet is putting out. She has a whole back catalog that I need to pick up eventually. But there you go. Questions, recommendations. I don't really have any at this point, except to say, check out Judith Sonnet. She talks about moving forward as a writer. Again, best known for extreme horror, some splatterpunk, but she's written a book called Hot Musket that I don't know if one would consider it erotica or light porn, because I don't have it. It is one that I will pick up and read. And then this collection of mostly quiet horror. I believe The Home, which I picked up recently. I don't think that's extreme. I don't think. I haven't read it yet, so I'm not 100% sure. And she's got a book called Doppelgangers that will be coming out that is quiet horror. She doesn't want to be pigeonholed. She doesn't want to become stagnant. And so my recommendations, basically, if you can handle the extreme horror, check out some of her stuff. I haven't even read her most extreme. yet. But she also has, there's Earth versus the Nudist Colony Freaks, Nudist Camp Freaks, which is a pastiche of 50s sci-fi movies, an absolutely wonderful pastiche of 50s sci-fi movies. And if you like Italian horror, there's Hell and Hell, City of the Killing Dead, both fantastic. Essentially, to me, Lucio Fulci type books, very much evocative of that bizarre Italian horror feel of Lucio Fulci and some other directors. Yeah, just check out Judith Sonnet. That's my recommendation. And yeah, no question for this video. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. Try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. If you care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Bluesky in the description below. And that's all I've got. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. Until next time, read more books.